Hey Ryan, I've really been enjoying our conversations about politics, but I think it's time to turn to something a little bit lighter. We recently finished Avatar. I wonder if there's anything interesting we could talk about. I recently got this Avatar The Last Airbender book. It was really good. The Search. I liked it. It's very pretty. And a while back we did finish Naruto. Come to think of it, we may have dressed up as Naruto characters once. Or twice. We may enjoy it just a little bit. I know I do. It's a fun show, if you're a nerd and all. It might be fun to talk about both of them. Might be fun. So yeah, we're obviously a little bit nerdy, and I personally would love to talk about a topic that's been talked about 1,000 times before, but I think it's still one that maybe we can bring something new to. Sakura Haruno and Katara are very different characters. And initially the concept for this video was going to be putting 5 or 6 different lady characters, ranking them on a scale using different characteristics and attributes, and then seeing where the data points take us. Seeing what different strengths and weaknesses they have, what's innovative and interesting about one versus the other. But that got out of hand really quickly. I ended up with 4 pages on just Sakura and Katara alone, so we're gonna have to break this out over a few different videos. So this week, I'm gonna start with Sakura Haruno and Katara, and then hopefully move on to some other characters. There's already a lot of other videos out there comparing the female characters in Avatar to other franchises, but for the sake of this video, I really just wanted to focus on looking at the individual characteristics and attributes and asking the question, how do they do? I'm actually gonna use 4 different criteria, talk through each one of them, and then do a little bit of a character overall. Let's talk about the 4 criteria I'm going to use to judge each character I talk about. So the first criteria is going to be the concept of the character. I'm going to try to use a few words or a brief phrase to describe the character. How are they used? What makes them compelling? What makes them interesting? And by the way, I will be ranking them from 1 to 5 on these different criteria, so that's what the number means at the end of each criteria. So the second criteria is going to be relatability. The overall point I'm trying to get at is, if I was in that universe, would I find them believable? Do they abide by the laws of the universe? Are they someone that actually makes sense in terms of the story? Are they compelling? Do they have motivation? How much can I see why they're doing what they're doing in the story? The third is capabilities. When it comes to capabilities, what I'm looking for isn't necessarily they're the strongest character in the series. All of the characters that I'm going to be talking about today, and probably for the foreseeable future, unless I get to Korra, would be talking about characters who aren't the main character. And a lot of female characters are not the main character. So I'm not looking at it from the perspective of I expect them to be the top dog. But what I do want to see in the capability category is that their capabilities aren't coming out of nowhere, but they're justified, they're shown. We're not just told that something pops up and now they can do this thing. Yeah, we're going to get to that with Sakura later. We need to see these characters grow in their skills, develop, and become that person. And also, are they awesome? Because awesome helps. The fourth and final criteria is going to be their arc. When it comes to their arc, again, they're not going to be the main character, so we know they're not going to have the arc. They're not going to have the hero's journey. They're not going to be the ones who are leading the story. But what I want to see is ambitions, what they started with, what their goals and ambitions were, that they have a journey that makes sense for who they are. Are we seeing them grow, mature, become the person who they should have been? And is it logical and consistent with who they are? Okay, so I've talked about my criteria and ranking enough. Without further ado, let's talk about Sakura.
春のさくらです。好きなものはっていうか好きな人はで趣味っていうか将来の夢は
Now, this is probably going to be a little bit controversial because everyone seems to have a strong opinion of Sakura one way or another, but that's not going to stop me from at least talking about it. I really love the Naruto franchise. So when I'm talking about Sakura, just keep in mind I'm doing it as a person who has watched all of Naruto multiple times, every single Naruto-based movie, all of Boruto, all of the addendum novels in between Naruto Shippuden and Boruto. And then after I finished watching Naruto twice, I went back and watched the fan adaptation of Naruto Kai, which can be a whole different thing. So when I talk about Sakura, I'm not talking about Sakura because I hate her, or I hate Naruto, or I just want to bash the franchise. I'm talking about it as a person who legitimately loves and finds the whole thing endearing. Sakura Haruno, she's the girl in love. She's strong. And she's a medical ninja.
Katana が突き刺さったままで止血と治癒を。器用なやつ。
I think a lot of Naruto fans would also call her a crybaby, which is fair.
Sakura.
Honestly, she wasn't any less annoying than Naruto was in the first few seasons of Naruto anyway. Sasuke definitely had it right to call them both annoying. Yeah, it's annoying, but it's one of those things where she started as an annoying character, and what you wanted to see her do was grow out of being an annoying character, which we'll talk about that in a little bit, but just keep that in the back of your mind for now. For now, we'll just say Sakura is a pretty girl, a girly girl, a girl who likes boys. She's the pink one. I'd say 2 out of 5. Onto relatability. So I was never much of a boy crazy kind of girl. You kind of know that, but you also kind of don't. When we met each other, and that was it. And this is not, I'm not like other girls thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with being into boys. It's just personally to me not very relatable. But what does get under my skin a little bit is that so much of Sakura is driven by this inferiority complex to the men around her, and also this incessant need not to just get their approval or their praise, but their undivided attention and affection. It's not something I can really relate to, and I don't know how many people can. Probably the most relatable thing about Sakura is that she has to work so much harder, especially when you go from Naruto to Shippuden, to get the same thing. So early on in the series, it's a big deal that she has this capability of being able to control her chakra very well, and she's ahead of the guys, and Kakashi sends them out to keep practicing, but well, Sakura gets to stay back. Well, the script really flips in Shippuden, because in Shippuden, you see her sometimes having to work way harder, or not at all, to get the same results. It's always one of the two for her. You either never see her do any work or any practice or any training, or you see her training like crazy when it comes to the medical ninja stuff. So in the beginning of Naruto, they talk about how Sakura has the right kind of chakra control in order to be able to do genjutsu. And you see Kurenai use this, you see Itachi Uchiha use this, but it never really goes anywhere. And this is one of the biggest complaints I know people have about Sakura, is that she was supposed to be good at genjutsu and they never did anything with that. And yeah, sometimes she releases genjutsu, but she never really does genjutsu. When it comes to relatability, I think it would have been more interesting if they run with that chakra control and genjutsu piece and showed her building those up as Sasuke and Naruto are building up their capabilities and skills. I think it would have also made her more relatable, as it would have been a more tangible skill that we would have seen from her. The medical ninja stuff is great, but other than that, she's just punch. And it's just, there's no motivation and there's nothing compelling there. And how do I relate to someone whose biggest thing is, I'm in love with this guy who's an asshole, and I'm punchy. Like, I guess. Mostly what we see from Sakura is her asking for other people to do stuff for her. Asking Naruto to bring Sasuke back. Asking Naruto to save them from pain. I guess that's kind of relatable, but also no. What we don't see her do is do things that make her more relatable in terms of her own goals and own ambitions outside of Sasuke. 2 out of 5, I guess? Okay, so as much as I was complaining about the genjutsu, when we talk about capabilities, this is where I think Sakura actually does start to shine more. So capabilities is tricky, because if you look at Sakura and you compare her to Sasuke or Naruto, she's not going to meet up. But she's also not the descendant of a goddess, so most of the characters in Naruto don't really meet that benchmark or standard when it comes to capabilities. The vast majority of them are not Madara, they are not Kaguya, they are not Sasuke or Naruto, or even the first Hokage. So no, she's not in the top 10% tier in terms of the Naruto universe, but let's just take her by herself and talk about her as a character. She starts with nothing. I mean, you see her, she can do clone jutsu, and she's got good chakra control, but yeah, we don't really see her doing much jutsu at all. Having almost no skills, to having monster strength, incredible dexterity, medical ninja prowess, and the strength of a 100 seal. It's actually pretty impressive. She's not Naruto or Sasuke. I think if we actually saw her learn the skills that she has, they'd be even more compelling than what we got to see on screen. She just didn't get that time, and she really got done dirty by Kishimoto when it came to showing how she got the capability she got, and for it to be more believable than just, hey, she can do this thing now. She has several major battles, saves many characters' lives, including Naruto's life, and she shows a ton of intelligence. And I think if you watch Boruto, at least the anime, you do get a little bit more out of Sakura because you really get to see how that all comes together when you watch her in the 7th Hokage in the Scarlet Spring. Unfortunately, her skills really don't get the screen time they deserve in order to show just what she's got, because when she does a pretty good job. 4 out of 5. Last section for Sakura, let's talk about her arc. This is definitely where Sakura as a character just falls completely flat. She starts by liking Sasuke, and she ends by liking Sasuke. What a motivating character journey you've taken us on, Kishimoto. She is so obsessed with this guy that she hardly spends any time with. He abandons her when she's a child. He's gone for years, 3 years before she even sees him again. And when she does, he attacks them. And yet, this girl keeps acting like he loves her. Keeps acting like he loves her. Let Naruto take care of his stupid ass. Like, you could have been so much better off even with a dumb character. Why? I just don't get it. And the thing about Sakura is that if that was going to be the only thing that defined her, of course it would fall flat. Because Sasuke is off screen for the majority of the time and they hardly spend any time together. So why did we lose this thread or this idea that she could start from being a crybaby and go on to be an incredibly strong, incredibly capable shinobi in her own right? I guess you can say she did move on from being a crybaby at the beginning of the series to a more involved character. But even late in the series, you still see her crying and screaming Naruto's name in the Pain Saga, and it's like, girl, what are you doing? You are literally the Hokage, the current Hokage student. Why aren't you involved? Why aren't you up in this business? She was trained by the Hokage, and yet she was so inadequate at fighting in the 4th grade ninja war. It was really bizarre. Like, her purpose in being there was primarily heal the people, and then punchy a couple times. It was so unsatisfying. 1 out of 5, try again, Kishimoto. So overall, Sakura is definitely a very weak main character, and it's so frustrating because you can see in this character they could have done so much more with her. I say they, but I really mean Kishimoto, right? He wrote the whole story. And Kishimoto admits this himself. He said many times female characters are one of his greatest weaknesses, but like, take a class or something, I don't know. Your readers deserve so much more than this. Women deserve so much more than this. Women make up a significant amount of cosplayers, manga readers, anime watchers. We care. He had so many chances in so many years to get this right, and this is where it really bums me out. In 700 episodes, we couldn't see happen to Sakura what happened to Katara in 60 episodes. It's just I think there was a really great essay done by this on how Naruto failed its female characters. You can find it in the doobly-doo below by Sage's Reign. It really goes through and talks more about this, and it also talks about Hinata and some of the other kunoichis, but just, And there could have been other storylines for Sakura too, ones that went into her obsession with boys. Maybe she could have picked up a different love interest than Sasuke along the way and really challenged the idea that she had this unbreakable bond to him. Because it was based on nothing. Paper thin, flimsy, there's no red thread of fate in this. Just, ugh. Sakura could have seen that Naruto was always there for her, that he was showing up, that he was trying to do everything to save the village. And finally, slowly realizing over time that he was the real hero of the story, that she had a reason to fall in love with him. But she didn't, even though she spent hundreds of hours watching him train, going on missions with him without Sasuke. They pulled out that string just a tiny bit in the Hokage summit art, but it like totally blew it because Naruto saw right through it and we all knew it was fake. It could have been a real compelling storyline and instead it was blown off. Oh, maybe Sakura likes Naruto, but just kidding, no she doesn't. She's just using it as an excuse to get him to forget about Sasuke. Like he was ever gonna fall for that. But instead there's this insistence that she loves this abusive asshole she spent no time with. They went on 2-3 major mission arcs together, did the Chunin exams, and that was it. Like, what is it with these two? He doesn't love... Okay, that's pretty cute, but he's still a boy. Alright, let's talk about our girl Katara. Obviously, we just finished Avatar, so this is a little bit fresher in my mind, and I might have watched a few more videos because Katara, y'all, Katara is so When I first started watching Avatar, I wasn't that convinced she was that compelling of a character, but it's only on rewatching her again and again, doing comparisons between her and other Avatar characters, that you see how strong of a character she really is. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the concept around who Katara is. Katara is a protector, a nurturer, and a healer. She's also a character defined by tragedy. There's a history of loss not just to her personally with her mother, but her whole tribe because of the Fire Nation's war. But the amazing thing about Katara is that she's not only defined by her loss and her tragedy, but her ability to remain hopeful despite how bad things have gotten. She stubbornly faces off against insurmountable odds at multiple times in the mere 60 episodes we have with her. She fights Zuko at the Southern Water Tribe, heads off with someone she doesn't know to fly around the world with him to try to learn waterbending, goes to the Northern Water Tribe and fights Zuko again, and she does this many more times throughout the series despite the brief time we have with her overall as a character. She does this again and again throughout book 2 as we get to Ba Sing Se, and then they fight against Azula and Zuko. Like, this girl is just always there, always showing her strength, always showing how much she's learning. Until we get to the day of Black Sun, and then they face off against even more insurmountable odds. Like, you don't think the stakes could get higher, and then they do. Yet she goes, and she fights, and she's an integral part of the team. She keeps Sokka and Aang alive again and again, until we get to the very last Agni Kai, where she's fighting off against Azula, one of the strongest characters in the entire series, one we spent so much time with that we thought Zuko was going to be the one to beat her. And yet it's Katara who's given the honor and privilege of beating her because we've seen her progress and learn. There's some really great videos about that last Agni Kai and why Katara got to take that position of honor. I highly recommend checking them out. I've linked one down below. 4 out of 5. I can't complain. I know I'm only giving her 4 out of 5 here, but I think there could have been maybe a little bit more done with her, with Sokka and Toph, but they didn't really get to it. And I would have liked to see just a little bit more with her and Aang, because I feel like that sort of only came up on Aang's side, and we never really got to see Katara express herself as a character interested in love. Like, she was just there, and Aang kissed her, and it showed up, and 4 out of 5, heartfelt, I'm moved. Please teach me waterbending. Then we get to relatability for Katara. Who, man, is this girl relatable? Life in a small town? Check. Annoying brother? Check. Traveling the world with the chosen one? Well, I mean, it's the premise of the show, so we'll give it to her. In terms of characters, Katara is so believable. We see her motivation, we see why she's compelling, we see why she does what she does, and it helps us relate to her as a character, and it also makes her journey and her story so compelling. And unlike Sakura, we see her constantly practicing, constantly focusing on waterbending. She spends all of her spare time either teaching herself how to waterbend or teaching Aang how to be a better waterbender. We see her seek out knowledge, teachers, and anyone else who can help her become a better person and a better waterbender. What can I say? She's believable and relatable. 4 out of 5. Now let's talk about capability. This girl is... whew. We see her in the very first scene, just doing a little water wiggle, a little back and forth. She catches her first fishy fish, and she breaks Aang out of a 100-year sleep. First off, it's amazing seeing that as the second scene from this character, who we're just learning is whatever is a waterbender. What's amazing about Katara is she goes from that small water wiggle to learning water healing. She learns to bend not just small amounts of water, but huge amounts of water. She teaches herself a water whip. She becomes Aang's teacher, and then she learns blood bending. Terrifying. Freaking cool, but terrifying. Katara is truly impressive, and actually her and Sakura do a lot of the same things except the smashy smash. Or they do the smashy smash, but they do the smashy smash in a different way. Katara does it with water, and Sakura does it with punches. But I think it's interesting that they're both healers. But what I truly appreciate about Katara is that whereas in Naruto that healing is oh, this is how I can help, Katara's yeah, I can do that, but I'm gonna do more than that. I'm not gonna limit myself to just being a healing and nurturing character. I'm gonna be a badass warrior while we're at it. And much like how we see Sakura save Naruto's life, we also see Katara save Aang's life. I think Avatar did a very good job of stretching our imagination on just how far Katara could go with waterbending. We saw this girl start with her little water wiggle and then go all the way to blood bending, to using water from anywhere she could think of. The sky was the limit for her, which is just so cool to see you take that character and just bring them to their full entire capability and capacity set. I have to say, Katara's capabilities, I can't even think of where else she could go, because dipping a little bit into Legend of Korra, you see she's become the world's most famous healer. Like, she doesn't stop with just waterbending for fighting. She also continues to progress even after we see Avatar end, and it's incredible. 5 out of 5. I can't think of any way to improve her character. Okay, final area for Katara, art. This is the part where you really see the disparity between the characters and the love and care and attention given to Katara versus Sakura. They were both created by male authors, yet Katara is a complete joy to watch from start to finish. Not necessarily saying we're joyful about everything that happens to her, but it's so exciting to see her go from her little water wiggle to teaching Aang, learning about the world, growing as a person, and her motivations are so clear-cut. We know how important her tribe is to her, how important tradition is to her, how important Aang and Sokka are to her. We see time and time again that protective, nurturing person she is, but not in a derogatory sense that so often women get pigeonholed into. When we first meet her, she's the very last waterbender in the Southern Water Tribe, and she's only there because her mother sacrificed herself to save her life. Katara's motivations are always clear: avenge her mother, protect her family, protect her way of life, and end the 100-Year War. Super straightforward. And add on top of that, she just wants to be a strong waterbender. And we get to watch her as the show unfolds become stronger, fall in love, avenge her mother, sort of, but in the right way, right? She doesn't avenge her in the way that we would expect, but we see her lay down the cause of avenging her mother. But her character journey is also believable. We don't go from seeing her hate Zuko for invading the Southern Water Tribe to just accepting him as part of the gang a few seasons later. No, she's like, bro, no, we're not doing this. You tricked me. You tricked Aang multiple times. You've tried to hurt him multiple times. Why would I believe you? But what's also incredible is that they don't stop with believable. They take it one step further and they say, how can we stretch Katara not just in her capabilities, but as a person? Mercy and forgiveness. This girl holds a grudge for a good reason. She's been through a lot of crap, and it's so believable, not because we necessarily think that Katara wouldn't be concerned or hold a grudge or want to hurt the man who hurt her mother, but because we see in her what she learned from Hama many episodes earlier when it came to letting go of those who've hurt you. She saw what happened when that rage and that vengeance got out of control, and she decided to pick a different path. At Aang's suggestion, we see Katara go from barely being able to waterbend to helping Zuko take down Azula, to bringing peace back to the world and restoring balance, to traveling with Aang and trying to undo the damage the Fire Nation did. We see her do all of this simultaneously while protecting her people, preserving the traditions of her water tribe, and also growing as a person. Katara is just an incredible arc from start to finish. And at first when I was watching the story, I didn't find it as compelling because I was so caught up in the whole Avatar universe itself and how interesting and exciting it was, and how Sokka was growing as a character and how Aang was growing in his abilities, and we were seeing all of these different things happen. I kind of missed seeing Katara grow the first time. I'm excited to rewatch it again. 5 out of 5, I ship her. Not with anyone, just her. Katara is compelling, well thought out, and incredibly delightful. She's just a really, really good, well-rounded character. She's not perfect. I mean, I nitpicked a couple things earlier about her relationships. She's also very young. She's got so much more that we could have seen from her. But in terms of the story, the arc, how she was used, everything, I think it was so well done, and it's what I want to see in more female and women characters in the future. Okay, that's all the time I have for this week. Thank you for listening to me rant about Sakura and Katara. I really love female characters and I love talking about them and their dynamics and their universes, and I hope I'll have more time to do this in the future. Love always, Amanda. The children are making a lot of noise today.